to talk about Gadu?
Gadu.
Guru.
Gadu.
Gudu?
Gadu.
Gadu.
This movie was
Guru.
Gudu?
it was good. Half good.
It was good.
Gadu.
It was good though.
Guru.
Good. So I actually like this is again in your definitely would have been better as a documentary.
Yes.
So much so they actually cut documentary footage into the end of the film.
And the end was
true.
like the best part.
yeah.
So this is a movie about a young Indian boy who lived in very, very far, days away from Calcutta.
Yeah, very rural India.
1,600
Very rural India. And he grew up with his mother and much older brother, or a teenage brother. He's 5. And he ended up getting estranged from his brother accidentally when they were doing a night job. He ended up getting on a train, stayed on the train scared as a 5-year-old for days, ended up in Calcutta where, repeatedly he almost was sold into slavery or he was being used as a child slave or something like that. And then eventually he ends up in an orphanage, a pretty rough orphanage, but he's able to tell his story and he's able to connect with a social worker who says...
And then is adopted by the only Australian actress we have, apparently.
Yeah.
Shows up anytime they mention Australia in a film.
Grows up having ultimately a pretty privileged life in Australia and becomes an Australian.
I enjoyed the first half of this film when he's a kid, little kid.
It's a good odyssey. A perilous situation happening to a child. It is very interesting. The twists and turns.
Ooh, I was kind of relieved to get out of India. I actually felt a little different.
I was looking, so I knew where it was going. So I was, even though I thought the Indian scenes were more or less well handled, I knew that it was all kind of gum works.
Yeah, it was the meat.
Until the actual story, which was when I was 5, I got lost. Now I want to see where my family is.
And much like with Arrival, I was really into the technical aspect of how does he find his family and Google Earth being like a new thing and how do we get
But then
back
he clicks on Google Earth for the next half of the movie.
Which is
on his couch, sadly, losing his job under a pile of papers for no reason.
I understand you're trying to mimic what really happened, but his kind of fall off from society into this state was so.
It's a very
botched.
interesting story that doesn't lend itself well to narrative filmmaking.
No.
Yeah.
Because
and Rooney Mara's there for some reason.
Andy Rooney.
That was weird. And like she keeps like getting back together with him and sleeping with him when he's clearly.
Well, because there's some runtime they gotta fill.
Not to mention the Indian actor that they picked was overly attractive. I mean, for the role.
Like to the point that when they showed the real guy at the end, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, why didn't you hire a real human?
That's like when you see the real Maria von Trapp,
yes.
and you're like, oh my god, she's a hog.
Yeah, the guy looked like a normal Indian guy, as opposed to like one of the top 7 most beautiful Indian men there are.
Yeah. The tall, lanky, like
with the beautiful facial
he looks like
structure,
it looks like he should be in a folk band or something.
Like, how much better would this movie have been if it was 80 minutes?
Oh.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that have been a really great?
And cut it mostly out of the second
We'd say
half,
so many
wouldn't
nice things.
Or I'd watch a 3-hour documentary. I could go either way.
Yeah.
Either way, or 60-minute documentary.
Documentary, yeah. But the documentary would have been the most interesting thing. Is like if you would have you could have profiled the village he was from, and you could have, and then. Like you get to meet his real mom and stuff.
And the most interesting, they omitted one of the most interesting parts is where his brother died.
Yeah.
The day he went missing.
Not only that, but they deceptively showed scenes in which the brother came back looking for him. Yeah. Which, of course, I understand it was meant to be from the kind of perspective of his mind.
He must be looking for him.
I think they were straight up dreams.
Gadu must
that he
be
was
looking
having.
for me.
Gadu.
Gadu.
But the way it was communicated was no good. No good.
No Gadu.
No Gadu. Should we mention that Gadu is his brother's name?
Oh yeah, Gadu is his brother's name. If you, for some reason, are watching this part and having not seen the movie.
Which is very likely. I mean, the fact is, whenever we do these Oscar pods, like we have to go through a hell of a process to watch these movies. The audience very likely hasn't seen.
Yeah, maybe they've seen 1 or 2 of these.
Nicole Kidman did nothing for me.
Yeah,
and
Nothing at all.
I would have liked to have seen more about the adopted brother. Like, what was his deal?
yeah, he was extremely interesting and
Yeah.
disturbed.
Yeah. It looked like he had been through more of, a child
normal
slavery and then in through the orphanage system longer and all that. I think that's kind of what they were implying when there was the scene where he was in the orphanage and that child who obviously had, issues was taken away at night. I think that you were then supposed to believe that, yeah, that's basically what had happened to his brother, is that he had been...
It kind of felt like
in similar
the main
ways.
character was kind of like rolling his eyes at his brother the whole movie. Which
Increasingly and strangely inconsistently too.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I really like my brother. Sometimes I'm really I'm aggressively against him.
which I guess is the complicatedness of life, but
But you didn't need to make it so lumpy in the film
Yeah, I
when we
agree.
only spending 2 hours with you.
Look, so if you asked me, do you like this movie, Frankie? I'd say, yeah.
You know what? It's interesting. It's an interesting movie. It's an interesting perspective. It's shot interestingly. It's got like a golden color scheme, which you don't see too much in movies. It's usually just the teal and orange.
I enjoyed thinking about the situation. Because as I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking about, like, well, how would you? Okay, I guess you couldn't. If you don't even know your mom's first name, how could you ask anybody? Or I like Arrival did the same thing, where I'm like, oh yeah, how would you? So I like any movie that makes me think the whole time.
Yeah, especially in a situation where India has so many people that how would you even narrow down what obscure village that you came from?
When documentation and birth certificates don't even exist for where you are.
Every night I imagine that I'm walking those streets home, and I know every single step of the way. And I whisper in her ear, I'm here.